In the year 1900, a soft-spoken man in his 30s walked up to three strangers. It was outside a lower Manhattan hotel. He had a story to tell, and they had 40 minutes to hear it. He flashed a thick leather folder, dropped famous names like he was ordering lunch. Within 40 minutes, the three men signed the paper. They paid him cash, up front and in full, for the Brooklyn Bridge. They thought they were buying an investment property. They were getting scammed, and they had no idea. And here is the part that does not make sense until you know the trick. They were happy about it. They shook his hand, thanked him warmly, and congratulated themselves on the deal. Then they walked away, convinced they had made the smartest real estate deal of their lives. The man's name was George C. Parker, and the Brooklyn Bridge, that was just his Tuesday. George Parker did not look like a criminal. That was his whole weapon. He was born in 1860 in a working-class family on the Lower East Side. No formal education, no inheritance, no family money. What he had was nerve, a good suit, and a voice that could pour honey into a mailbox. By the late 1800s, he had already figured out two things about the city. First, most New Yorkers had never actually been on most of the city's landmarks. Second, almost no one bothered to check who actually owned public monuments before writing a check. He started small. He sold a box at Madison Square Garden that turned out to be a janitor's closet. He sold a private viewing box at the old Academy of Music that did not actually exist. He talked a printer into producing beautifully forged deeds on the fanciest paper money could buy. Each deed came complete with fake surveyor stamps and fake city seals, and signatures of mayors who had been dead for decades. What Parker was selling was not a building. It was a feeling. The feeling of owning a piece of the city that everyone else just looked at. And that feeling sold over and over again. Here is how the bridge trick worked. Pay attention. A mark would meet Parker, sometimes through a referral from a previous buyer, other times through a newspaper ad disguised as a government notice. Parker would explain very seriously that the city had decided to sell off small stewardship shares of the bridge. The reason, he said, was that maintenance was too expensive. He would hand over a deed. He would explain that any maintenance fees would be the buyer's responsibility. He would explain that they could charge a real toll on the bridge and keep the money. He would talk about the foot traffic, the delivery wagons, the future of mass transit. He made it sound like buying a toll booth on the highway of the century. And here is the genius part. He told them they had to keep the sales secret. The reason, he explained, was that the city did not want the public to know that landmarks were being sold off. If anyone found out, the mayor would shut the whole thing down. So they had to play along, pay in cash, and never, ever tell anyone. The mark thought they were getting in on a hidden gold mine. The mark signed, without hesitation, 19 bridges, 0 bridges owned. When Parker's biographer estimated he had sold the bridge 19 times, he was not exaggerating. Some historians think the real number was closer to 40. So many buyers stayed silent, trapped by the embarrassment of admitting what had happened. The bridge was just the headline. Parker had a whole menu. He sold the Statue of Liberty multiple times. He would wait for tourists to walk up to the pedestal, then flash his deed. He claimed to own the smaller statue in the courtyard, a statue that did not actually exist. He sold Grant's tomb multiple times. He sold the Metropolitan Museum of Art multiple times, in pieces. A separate sale on the mummy wing, the Egyptian wing, and what he claimed was the Greek wing. He sold the White House twice. No one noticed. He sold one Manhattan town hall 6 different ways. 6 different people bought it, on 6 different days. He sold the original Yankee Stadium before it was even finished being built. He sold the Washington Square Park Arch at least 3 times because tourists kept walking up to it and asking who owned it. He even tried, more than once, to sell Madison Square Garden itself, multiple times. At one point, he reportedly sold a tract of land on the moon. A few of these scams got small write-ups in the press. The reports mostly played it for laughs. But most of his work never made the papers at all because the marks kept quiet. He also ran smaller side hustles that had nothing to do with landmarks at all. He once sold a Broadway theater to a man in a wheelchair. Later that afternoon, he sold the same theater again, this time to the man's nurse. He sold a Brooklyn woman what he called an original Rembrandt. It was her grandmother's portrait, painted by a local sign painter. He sold a thoroughbred horse to a farmer who could not read English. The horse turned out to be a mule. He once organized a full wedding. Bride, groom, minister, photographer, cake. The minister was paid off. The bride was a paid actress, and the marriage was not real. The bride's mother cried. Parker kept the cash. And that leaves one obvious question hanging over everything. How do you sell the Brooklyn Bridge over and over in a city of 2 million people and not get caught for 15 years? 3 reasons explain everything that came next. Reason 1. Shame kept the marks quiet. Every buyer was told the deal was secret. Most of them believed it. The victims who understood the scam were often too embarrassed to tell the police. Many could not even admit it to their families or business partners. Several of Parker's marks quietly ate the loss and never spoke of it again. Reason 2. The police were looking for the wrong thing. At the time, most fraud investigations focused on counterfeiting and ticket scalping. Protection rackets consumed the rest of the police department's attention. Guy sold someone a building he did not own was not on the radar, especially when the buyer did not file a complaint. Reason 3. Parker kept his circle small and his paperwork beautiful. His forgeries were stunning. His deeds looked better than real deeds. The city seals, the embossing, the gold leaf, all of it was accurate enough that even a sharp lawyer might hesitate before questioning it. Some of his documents even fooled notaries who were not in on the scam. Parker's operation was not run by a street gang. It was run like a crooked accounting firm. Eventually, of course, the math caught up. In the year 1920, a buyer of one of Parker's private lots near Central Park noticed something. His deed, when checked against the city registry, did not exist. He did not go to the police. He went to a reporter. The reporter ran the story. The police finally had a name. They raided Parker's office on West 23rd Street. Inside, the detectives found hundreds of forged deeds and stacks of blank parchment. There were fake city seals and a printing press ready for the next sale. And reportedly, a small wooden sign that read George C. Parker, Real Estate. Parker was arrested, tried, and sentenced to life in Sing Sing. He died behind bars in the year 1936. He reportedly never apologized for any of it. In a 1922 interview from his cell, he was asked why he had done it. He told the reporter, in the same honeyed voice he had used on every mark, that the marks were the real problem. If they had any sense, he said, they would not have bought them. The phrase selling the Brooklyn Bridge entered the American language around this time. By the 1930s, it was already a cliché for any deal that sounded too good to be true. What gets lost, though, is that Parker's marks were not stupid. They were busy. They were optimistic. They trusted the suit, the deed, the formality of the whole thing. Most fraud does not work because people are dumb. Most fraud works because the system around it is exactly the kind of system people are taught to trust. If anything, Parker was less a con artist and more a one-man stress test for civic trust. He found every shortcut in the city's paperwork and every gap in its enforcement. He studied every assumption New Yorkers made about what was real, official, and true. He exploited every single weakness he found. And then he sold them. Every single one. Actually, no, he did not. The buyers never got them in the end. So next time someone pitches you a deal that sounds too good, too polished, and too secret to tell anyone about, picture a man in a long coat, standing on the Manhattan waterfront. He is smiling, holding a piece of paper worth exactly nothing. And run. Fast. Do not look back. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next story. Subscribe for more stories like this one.